Okay. Michaelis Cherlionis has been called a symbolist, painting not representations of nature, but creations of his imagination and dreams. But in the four paintings of Spring Sonata, he just painted cliffs, trees, windmills, fish, and spires. Paintings are representational, not abstract. Cherlionis often painted complex buildings and trees with much detail and precision. But here, only the fish has a carefully drawn shape, but has only one vague fin and lacks eyes. These paintings are not really about things. Instead, they are about what the ancient Greeks and the philosopher Emmanuel Levinas called the elements. The third painting is about water. The second is about the sky. The first is about bedrock exposed on the cliff wall and earth made by the action of water on rock. The fourth painting is about outer space. Let us begin with the third painting, Allegro. The empty space, the minimal strokes, the absence of color, one featured animal off centered, these are characteristics of Chinese and Japanese painting. In this picture, almost all is water. Water is transparency, freedom of the gaze. It is visible only when things are reflected, doubled on it, mountains, trees, or the moving flakes of sunlight. The painting shows a landscape, but not as seen from one viewpoint. Instead, what is seen in the painting is seen from different locations. What is seen directs the viewer to go to different vantage points. The viewer is situated on the ground at some distance before a high stone wall enclosed with a gate, a wall such as encloses the mansion of a rich landowner. But this wall encloses a large body of water. The viewer is now situated above it, at bird's eye view. The view is unobstructed and sweeps freely over a great distance. In the depth of the water, we see a row of buildings vaguely outlined, a dead mansion or town buried in the waters of the lake. I don't think you could see this on this image, but if you look at the image carefully in the website, you can see their buildings, vaguely outlined in the bottom of the lake. The lake is enclosed in the far distance by a wall of mountains with clouds settled between them. They are reflected, doubled on the surface of the water below. In the stone wall before us to the right, there's an opening without a gate. The viewer passes through it and is at once in the water, facing a fish at eye level, very close, with two more fish at eye level but further away. The fish is sleek, elegant, swift. Our eyes do not look at such fish in lakes, but join them as they dart through the water allegro. But this fish is still, stopped by a net dropped across the water, and that extends in the top left of the picture into the sky. The net is held up by three large floaters that are shaped like slices of a loaf or of a fruit, but are of the color and density of the rocks of the front wall. On our Earth, rocks form the base that supports the ground and the water over it. Here, the rocks hover just over the surface of the water. There's line motors that hold up a net. We feel a tension between the freedom of our view over vast, unobstructed space and in the transparency of water, and then confinement of the fish on all sides, the more troubling that it is barely visible. When we go to the country and walk to see the landscape, there are two different kinds of experience of landscapes because there are two different kinds of points of view or positions of the viewer. A tree, a rock formation, a mountain stream attracts us, and it directs us to the place where we have to go to see it, up that path, around that bend, up on those boulders. We are directed, ordered by the tree, the rocks, and the stream. dependent on them, subjected to them. We have the pleasure of seeing a great many things, their different sizes and profiles intimately, but it takes time and effort to we are directed. Do look for if, where vast expanses spread out before us, exposed to our view. Here we have the pleasure of seeing a great many things, each in its place, and also our look is unobstructed, dominating, freely sweeping across the whole landscape, sovereign, free to bring into focus anything we like. There is something godlike in that experience. But at the same time, the rocks, trees, rivers appear interlocked with one another, not interacting with us, remote and alien. In the first kind of experience, we are directed, commanded by the things. In the second viewpoint, we dominate the things. Landscape painting, especially in Northern Europe, was the most important art of the 19th century. The painting showed wild and inaccessible places, ice-covered mountains, dense forests, stormy seas. The artist and the viewer, situated at a height, commanded and dominated the landscape, affirmed his sovereignty. Churlionis's painting Allegro shows one landscape, but not as seen or visible from a commanding vantage point. The things direct the viewer. To see this wall, you have to be on the ground, some 40 feet before it. To see this lake in the distant mountains, you have to see it from the air, above, like a bird. To see this fish, you have to be in the water with it. Let us now turn to the second painting, Andante, slow movement. That's the painting with the windmills. There it is. Okay. Again, the lake or a lake in the distance that we catch sight of between gaps in a wall of hillocks. On top of them, 6 windmills, but no roads lead to them, and there are no fields of grain in the barren land about them. Their blades or vanes are huge. They hide from view the buildings that support them, and they would almost scrape the ground as they turn. But they are still, no wind turns them in this land of death. Their veins are not of lightweight sheets of cedar, but are massive and dense, like the lengths of timber, like the beams of the cross of Christ's crucifixion, multiplied on the hill of crosses near Siolii in northern Lithuania. The windmills are reflected, doubled in the sky. Now the viewer is situated in the sky, close to and at eye level of a windmill, with another above it to the right, and with 8 windmills behind in the far distance. It is strange to see windmills, big heavy structures that have to be securely anchored on the ground in the sky. But on the other hand, the sky is the realm of winds. The windmills are set on hills of cloud that do not stop the vanes as they extend far beyond the base of the building and radiate like beams of pulsating light. The windmills reflect our doubles of the sun. Real things engender doubles of themselves. If there's a tree, it has doubles like itself. If there is a stone, there are more stones like it. They cast shadows. They cast reflections of themselves on the surface of water. They double in images in the air, in mirages in the air. Real shadows, real reflections, real as they are. What we identify as figments of our imagination have no doubles. When we hear a cry of alarm in the night, but there is not another cry heard, we realize that we did not really hear it, we only imagined it. If we see a snake on the floor of the library, step back and do not see it again in another place, we know we only imagined it. A ghost casts no shadow and is not reflected in a mirror. A double is not a duplicate. It is in another place and has other features. We see that this is an oak tree and not a willow because we know what oak leaves look like, but each of its leaves has some variation. We see our body, our chest, belly, and arms, and we see a double of our body in a mirror. But the double also has our face, which we do not see when we look at our body. A landscape painting doubles up a landscape. It is not a figment of the imagination. It is real. And like our reflection in a mirror, we can see things on it that we don't see by just looking at the landscape. Energy or calm or harmony, for example. When we go out into the country, into the environment about us, doesn't the question sometimes arise, does the whole landscape have a double? Is there a world behind the scene, like Plato's realm of pure ideas, or as the Theosophists held, the realm of pure forces or spirits? Symbolist painters depicted scenes that were symbols of this other realm. Martin Heidegger held that behind or beneath the landscape about us, there is the void, the abyss. We do not see real things, make contact with reality unless we advance to them, reach for them, manipulate them. And where we reach for food or drink, toxins may lurk. What we manipulate may break or fall and strike us. Wherever we walk or stand, the supporting ground may give way. Everywhere we advance, death lurks. The abyss of death opens. The world looks solid and supporting and full of paths and objectives. But we move with anxiety, for at any moment, in the next moment, with the next step, we may fall into the abyss. Let us look now at the first painting, Allegro. That's the one. That's it. Cliffs, cascades, wind-bent trees, blank spaces, in black and gray without color, rocks painted with rough and rapid strokes, are characteristic of Chinese and Japanese painting. There are no people or signs of their passage. The landscape, water, vertical cliffs is remote and inaccessible. Visible only through rough strokes, they elude grasp and measure. The scene is sublime in its desolation. The visible things in the landscape move the viewer to the right and to the left and above and below. They fragment or multiply the viewer and first the artist. The cliff wall situates the viewer close to it on the right. The viewer sees it veering off sharply into the distance. Now I want to see I think it's this one. This one here.
This is okay, or we choose another one?
Yeah, I want to see, let's see, the one below it.
This one?
Yeah. There are three equally spaced cascades. The one on the right is closest to the viewer. Now let's look at the image that you had on the screen just a moment ago. It's the one above this one. Yeah. The cascades pour into three pools. It is the one on the left that is closest to the viewer. The viewer has now been shifted to a spot on the left, looking up at the three pools. Water is transparent, but it reflects objects. They are reflected, doubled on the surface of water, and it is the reflection of something outside of it that makes the surface of the water visible. But in this landscape, the pools themselves are reflected, doubled on the land. There's a stretch of land at the bottom of the picture. It is closest to us and situates the viewer before it and somewhat above it. There are 3 ponds on this stretch of land. The 3 pools at the base of the cliff wall are reflected, doubled by the 3 ponds. There's also a 4th, quite small pond. Now, let's go back to the full image of this painting. So it's, is that it? Yeah, okay. On the top of the cliff wall, there's a blank space that seems to be a river that is pouring over the cliff in these 3 narrow cascades. In the upper part of the picture, there's a landmass with a beach on this side of it that seems to be the other bank of the river. And on the left edge of the picture, the river is blocked by land that joins the cliff wall with a landmass on top of the picture. But that cannot be. The painting shows the way the cliff wall looks when we are standing on the ground and looking up. Then on top of the cliff wall, we would see sky. We would see the river only if we are moved up to a height over the river. But then looking down at the cliff wall, it would not look like it does here. On the right, on top, there is no line marking the horizon and separating river from sky. What we saw as a river just merges into sky. Perhaps all this blank space over the cliff is sky. When we now look at that stretch of land on top of the picture, we see how big the trees are. And we realize that we are viewing it from somewhat above and that it is much closer to us than the cliff wall. It is not on the other side of the river and level with the top of the cliff wall. It is instead hovering in the sky, and we were viewing it from a position in the sky. At the bottom of the picture, there's a stretch of land with 4 ponds. The stretch of land in the sky has the same shape and the same 4 ponds as the stretch of land below. They reflect double one another. Let us look at this landmass on top of the picture, the one closest to us. There are trees on it with sharply drawn outlines and dense black. They are perfectly still. 4 full and dense trees alternating with 4 very slender ones, cedars and cypresses planted in cemeteries. But wait, the top of the landmass is horizontal and only the tops of the trees are seen above it. So this horizontal line on top of this landmass is not the far boundary of the landmass, nor is it the horizon. The trunks and the lower branches of the trees are visible in the ponds. Now our vision undergoes a dramatic change. These are not reflections of the trees on the surface of the water, making the surface and making transparent water visible there. Now as we look at that flat stretch of land, it turns up on its lower edge and stabilizes as a vertical wall that has 4 holes in it, through which we see the lower branches and trunks of the 8 trees. As we look through these holes, our gaze ends at the base of those trees of cemeteries in the land of death. The same thing happens in the stretch of land at the bottom of the picture. It too turns up and becomes a vertical wall with openings through which we see the trunks of the trees of the land of death. I think that once this happens, we're not going to be able to see it again as flat land. There are also 3 such openings in the cliff wall. It is vertical, not a cliff we could climb. Instead, it is a wall with openings through which we see the land of death. However, although these are open holes everywhere in the landscape that Cherlionis painted, they do not open upon the abyss of nothingness that Heidegger described. and the landscape is not fraught with anxiety. The land of death, where the trees grow, is a land of rest and life. Shirley-Onas's first paintings, painted in 1903, were a series of 7 paintings entitled Funeral Symphony. Only the 7th painting is melancholy, a single individual in a desolate room at a window before the night sky. In pictures 3 and 5, the mourners are together in great numbers, and 3 bearing the coffin to the setting sun under a golden sky. And then in 5, where is that? There it is, the blue one there, that one. Yeah, here the whole, here the mourners are in great number, bearing the coffin to a mountain cave, which glows with golden light. And now let's look at the 6th painting, which is the one right above this one. That one, yeah. And slide 6, the whole cemetery in the valley below glows with golden lights that we view from above and before 8 tall and very narrow cypress trees. And let's go back now to the first painting, in full. On the top edge of the cliff wall, the alternating 4 full and 4 slender trees are reflected, doubled, but whipped, bent, and torn by the winds. The landscape sounds with the silence of the land of death, the howling winds over the cliff wall, the melodious cascades, Allegro. And now let's look at the 4th painting, Finale. That's it. Here the painting is of space beyond sky. We are situated in outer space, from where the planet Earth is seen from a vast distance. Here there is one commanding, dominating viewpoint. 2 enormous spires, the one reflecting the other, rise held still as the planet whirls by their very broad splayed bases, like the buttress roots of ceiba trees in the American tropics. The spires have turrets on top shaped like rosebuds, but the spires are not springtime vegetative growths. They are made of stone. A compact white cloud about one tower reflects, doubles a lake below. They are observation towers, but the turrets have antennae on top and no windows. They are not viewing, but listening points, the posts. A thin stream of puffs of energy spirals about them and is pushed by cosmic winds into the distance, glowing white, rose, turquoise, yellow, ochre. The paintings we have examined are unique and do not give us a key or generalizations about Shirley-Onas's work. We noted how the 3rd and the 1st of the paintings are painted with characteristics of Far Eastern landscape paintings. These characteristics are not seen in any other paintings by Shirley-Onas. Allegro is the only painting he made with minimal black strokes only and no colors. The doubling and displacement of the viewer and viewpoint and viewer, so striking in the first 3 paintings of Spring Sonata, is only found in 2 other paintings by Shirley-Onas, the first 2 of the Sonata of the Pyramids. Let's take a look at them. Okay, that one. Well, let's look at that one first. Here you see the pyramids are seen first from a great distance in silhouette at the end of the day, and then they're seen from much closer in daylight. So what's totally unusual here is that the pyramids are seen twice, and they're seen from closer behind the pyramids seen from afar. Now let's look at this, the painting just below that one, the other one of the pyramids. Here we have the pyramid seen 3 times. First, again, seen from a great distance at the end of the day, seen in silhouette. And then on top, the pyramid seen from closer and in great detail in full daylight. And then in the middle, seen from above, the three pyramids emerging from the clouds and being struck by lightning. It's a very extraordinary, exceptional structure. Also, so we do not conclude with generalizations. We have not viewed the paintings to see them within the symbolist movement or even within the whole set of Giordano's works. But they reveal Giordano's interest and fascination with characteristics of our experience of the landscapes about us that are indeed fascinating. In these paintings, Giordano was engaged in painting not things, but elements: water, sky, earth, outer space. He was working with the different kinds of viewpoint and with the fascinating and pleasurable experience of real things doubling, reflecting one another, and with what lies beyond what we perceive. When we go to experience the landscape, we are not only lured by the shape and color of things, we are experiencing deeper fascinations, the immersion in light, in water, in the substance of earth and rock. The captivating fact that real things project shadows and reflections of themselves in water and mirages in the air and double up in other things like themselves. And the troubling and vulnerable sense that the landscape where we live is also the land of death. Thank you. That finishes my talk.
Thank you very much for a great presentation. It was a big pleasure to listen, and I'm sure we have a lot of questions. Lingis.
Good morning to you. Hi, Al.
Hi.
Yeah, you hear me?
I can.
Hey, you hear me? Okay. You know, a minor question. Some people say that Čiurlionis painted his music too. That's no difference between the two. How do you see the echoes and sounds across all these paintings? How do you hear all the sounds across the paintings? Hola.
Do you hear us? Alphonso?
Hey, are you alive?
It's the August.
Ah, something happened. Are you alive? Your animals are moving, so you must be alive.
Gal dar pakartokite, aš manau, kad negirdėjau klausimų.
Alfonso, did you hear me?
Yeah, but I would like to see a big image.
You remember in Penn State? I guess you can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can. Remember that? You showed me there was a pillar. On one side was a waterfall, on the other side was fire.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? The sounds of fire and water.
Yeah.
Does Čiurlionis paint sounds? Some people say that he does. He paints his music.
Turbūt negirdėjo. Jo, turbūt negirdėjo. Alfonso, do you hear us?
No, it's somehow disconnected. Sad.
Alfonso, I will write the question.
Laišką nusiųsti, rytoj atsakys.
Ne visose šalyse, kaip Lietuvoje, toks geras ryšys.
Yes.
I didn't see it.
Well, now you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. There are people, writers about Čiurlionis claim that he that there is a synesthesis between the two. He can play his paintings or paint his playing.
I'm not hearing anything.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah.
We are connected. It's something with internet here. Algis is asking if you also agree, like many says, that Čiurlionis is painting his music, and when he plays creating music, he also uses experience from visual harmonization of details, of experiences, of what Algis tried to remember. You like the waterfall, you see it and you hear it, and this is synergetic experiences. You know, those experiences plays together and creates much richer, and this, you know, participation in the world, much richer experiences.
Well, it seems that these four paintings that he first just numbered them, and then later he collected them together, and he gave them the title, these musical titles, and then finally he gave them the overall title of Spring Sonata.
Yeah, you're
right. I found the musical titles appropriate. In other words, the third painting of the fish, Allegro, you know, that does seem to me appropriate. And Andante for the painting of the windmills is this, Andante is floating.
Yeah, exactly. This was also my thought when I, you know, first time saw them. I understand, I told, but it's paradox. Andante is very intensive, and Allegro seems much more quiet. And I love your idea about Land of Death. It reminds a lot of things like silence, like forgiving forgetting, sorry, old things, and renovation of some new dreams and
it's the overall idea of spring sonata. I mean, if we think of spring as a season of birth, of
birth, yes.
So on.
The start.
That's absent in these paintings. I mean, he did paint 2 paintings that he called spring motif, and 3 paintings that he called spring. And on these paintings, they are about what we understand by spring, you know. They're paintings of melting snow, of trees coming into the leaf and so on, water flowing over the landscape. But I don't see that here at all. And So, I mean, maybe you could say in the first painting, there's so much water over a barren land that's like some sort of premonition of spring and so on. Or maybe he just painted them in the spring, you know, here he painted 50 paintings in the first half of the year. So he felt a great surge of growth and energy in himself. But the musical titles, like you, I think that the paintings do have this musical sense.
Yeah,
and the first painting, you know, I tried to say that you see in the painting, when you see those bent and twisted trees on top of the cliff, you can hear the howling winds.
Yes, the wind. And in the next painting, you see like the next level of the wind and what it means, you know, in this, you know, premodal sense with all the smells. And especially what I think is very important is that you also notice that it's, you know, horizon after horizon, and it's free. and this is very, very strong motif in many sonatas, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah, so I do see that there is a very real musical sense in these paintings.
Yeah. Okay, do we have some more questions?
I just want to make a little note. Dear Alphonso, I just, oh, yes.
Nida?
Yes. I just emphasized in my report about the speciality of the titles of Čiurlionis sonatas. Čiurlionis himself did not title any sonata. Oh. They were titled like music opuses, like Sonata number 1, Sonata number 2. This one is Sonata number 2, and up to the Sonata number 6. So the idea of the spring appears in the interpretation, in the cultural interpretation later. So you do not see those elements of spring. This is why. And Čiurlionis' idea maybe was not the spring itself, but something deeper, as you told in your report. Thank you very much. It was very interesting to hear.
Thank you for this information. Oh yeah,
yes. Our ideas in some places doubled. Yes.
You intuited it so precisely. The Čiurlionis doesn't title it them. It was later. Do we have some other questions? And also all Zoom participants can enter or ask. Okay, thank you, Alphonso. It's a great pleasure to see you and to listen to those beautiful, really beautiful and very rich ideas. Thank you.
I just want to make this one remark. I mean, the first painting is just in black with no color, and you know, which is typical of Chinese or Japanese painting. Yes. But there is no other example, because I think if you look at all the series of his paintings, one is so struck at the beauty of his colors. You know, I mean, color is very, very important in this artist.
Yes.
And we have this one painting that's just in black.
But I think he took many things from Far East, from China, from Zen especially, I think. And I think Van Gogh noticed very well also those ideas which came to the West from Japan mainly and China. And this was, when we have a first glance, it seems that it's really Chinese or Japanese painting. But this is not only this monochrome. I think there is a lot of what you mentioned also with Heidegger's Heidegger nothingness and many things with asymmetry, with many aspects. In fact, like leaving the center open, these empty spaces, and very typical to Zen, to Chinese art, which was a novelty in Western world at that moment, and Van Gogh noticed that also very well. So yeah, thank you very much. It was a great pleasure, and we will meet you a bit later. We will see all together the film which Vytautas has made a year ago, and Baltimore, yeah. So if you will stay with us, we will after 40 minutes or so, we'll start to see this film. We would be very happy if you would be able to participate.
Okay.
And of course, we will have some questions after that. Okay. So thank you for now. And